I think, I think I'm just gonna share it. I'm not gonna really like.
All right.
That way we could just. You did hashtags, right?
Yes.
All right. Not gonna really like. Do hashtags, right? All right, you ready?
Yep.
How you doing, everybody? Welcome to the Moffett on the Mic radio show. We are live as always, especially because one of us became the latest victim of the Rona. So the A1 Sports Network has instituted safety and health protocols. We are doing our show in quarantine. And I'll give you a hint. It's not me that has COVID.
I got hit with the vid. It was only, like I said, it was only a matter of time. It was only a matter of time before the vid got me.
So here we are, quarantined in our rooms for this show. And I am Craig Moffett, and of course, as always, is the one and only COVID Klim.
What's going on, Craig?
Klim, Merry Christmas. I'm sorry you got a late Christmas present of getting COVID.
Yeah, it was that on top of me getting destroyed in 2 of my fantasy playoff leagues. It was
I got it like weeks ago.
Yeah, I was in the semifinals in 2 of my leagues. The COVID put it over the top for me.
Oh man.
What am I gonna do?
I had Kyler Murray was a big disappointment. Austin Eckler was a pretty big disappointment as well, and I got eliminated. He was like, basically, that was it. My receivers were garbage because Elijah Moore was out. I had guys out left and right. Although I will say my sleeper pickup of the year was Cordarrelle Patterson.
Oh, he's so good.
Really good year.
So good.
So But with that being said, it is good to have you with us. We hope you all had a Merry Christmas. This is our final show of 2021 as we get ready for New Year's, as New Year's events are getting canceled left and right. And due to the latest variant, the Omicron, whatever you want to call it, variant. I was telling Klim before that I'm actually going through it right now at my job, where we have a few people that are testing positive. But I guess the blessing in disguise of this whole thing is that it goes through you pretty quick. So it kicks your ass for a little bit. But I also think in hindsight, your body will be better protected, I think.
That's what I was thinking, because like I have the vaccine, and now that I'm like I got the antibodies in me now, so I'm like, okay.
Now I know what shitbirds are going to say. I know what shitbirds are going to say too. Oh, well, I don't have to get vaccinated if I get COVID, right? Because it never fucking said that you would never get COVID ever again.
No, yeah, I know.
Like, did you know, like, if a woman gets her tubes tied, they could still get pregnant?
That I did not know.
Yes.
That I didn't know.
There's a small percentage, but that's what I mean. There's never going to happen again.
Right.
Okay? Like, when you go into remission from cancer, you could still get cancer.
Right.
You could still be diagnosed with cancer at a later date. So, but I'm not an advocate for vaccines. You guys do whatever you want. At the end of the day, my attitude is if you get COVID and you're not vaccinated, it's on you. Plain and simple. But again, enough about the political bullshit. Let's get to sports. We have not had a show since December 13th, if I remember right.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot has happened since we were gone. And I know Klim's feeling better because he's rocking the Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Damn straight.
PBR.
The best medicine on the market.
So you can follow the show on Instagram at Moff on the Mic. Just for the record, that's not the one they threw to you at Creator Pro, right?
No, I drank that within seconds at Creator Pro.
Yeah, because it's probably, yeah. You can follow the show on Instagram at Moff on the Mic and on my Facebook page as well. Follow Klim and the A1 Sports Network on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You can also subscribe to the show courtesy of Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can like and comment and leave us a 5-star review because it makes us feel so special at the end of the day. We've got a lot to do. This is more of a recap show. We're going to be back on Monday with our regular show, but wanted to kind of squeeze a show in before we get into 2022. And we got a lot to cover. We always close our show with our how did former Jets fare last week. And man, it just makes me feel so much better knowing how bad they're doing.
Oh, so much better.
It just makes me like, as Jet fans, we haven't really celebrated a lot of wins, but I will take this one 1,000%. So, all right. So without further ado, let's get started. Again, as always, you can follow the show on Instagram. You can comment during the live broadcast. Any questions or comments or whatever, feel free. We'll try to answer them as Klim gets them. And so let's go. All right. So we will start. We're not going to get into the recaps of football games from last week. The Giants lost, the Jets won. We're moving on because we're already at Thursday night and we're already getting into week 17. So I guess one of the biggest surprises with the Giants was not the fact that they lost. I mean, you're not going to win a game with Jake Fromm as quarterback. But what I found pretty surprising was I think it was Schefter that reported it, that John Mara is going to retain Joe Judge and Daniel Jones for 2022, but he's going to hire a new general manager. So let's get that into perspective right now. You know, I agree with Mara to an extent, and that is that you just can't keep changing coaches every 2 years. Sometimes you got to let these guys kind of you got to see if they can make it a third year. You got to see you just can't keep changing coaches, because then what's going to happen is that the team is not going to become a very interesting or attractive spot for you to go be a head coach in. If you know your job only is going to be a 2-year window, you're not going to want to go there. Mm-hmm. Because you're going to be under a tremendous amount of pressure from the minute you walk in the door.
Right.
And in a city like New York, for a team like the Giants, who have the lowest winning percentage, I think, of all teams in the NFL, next to the Jets, mind you, over the last 5 years, the pressure gets ratcheted 100 times more. And then it becomes a case of, well, shit, if I don't produce a winning season in my first year, am I going to be on the hot seat already? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, You could easily call the Giants' strategy of last offseason very misguided, maybe because of the fact that they just put a lot of money into the team and they're not getting enough return on the investment. You gave Leonard Williams a $20 million a year contract, and I'm not saying he hasn't been good, but he hasn't been great. He sure as hell hasn't been worth $20 million.
Right.
You gave Adoree Jackson a 3-year deal for $22 million. He hasn't really done anything. You gave Kyle Rudolph money, like I think a 2-year contract. He hasn't really done anything. The guys you had last year that were really good for you regressed. James Bradbury struggled. Logan Ryan struggled this year. And of course, the big acquisition, Kenny Golladay, has been a complete disaster for $72 million. Dave Gettleman put all of his chips in the middle of the table, and he lost. That's the best way you can describe it. That's the only way you can describe it. The problem now goes into next year, because what we have right here, Klim, we have a John Idzik, Rex Ryan situation. Okay? Where basically, if you want to be the GM of the Giants, we'd love to talk to you, but you got to keep Joe Judge. See, Daniel Jones is not that's not part of the equation. I kind of take Daniel Jones out of that equation, but you got to keep Joe Judge. And that, to me, if I'm a GM candidate and I have teams interested in me, the Giants are going to be the last team I call, the last team I talk to. Because what I don't want is, I do not want a coach that I know has management's 100% approval for a third season. I don't want to make moves and then have this guy going behind my back, talking to ownership and saying, well, I don't think this is a good idea. Or the fact that he has that kind of a relationship with the Maras. I don't think you want that if you're a general manager. It becomes a distraction. And on top of that, no GM wants to inherit a coach unless they truly feel that they can work with that guy or they're friends with him.
Right.
So there's that. So that's where the Giants kind of walk into next season. And the thing is, right now, they also don't have a lot of contracts that they could just cut next year. They're only about $3 million under the cap last time I checked. You'll most likely cut Sterling Shepard after I think he ruptured his Achilles or tore his ACL. That'll save you about $12 million. I think you can cut James Bradbury if you really want to. That's another $12 million. But the Giants right now, the way they are, and next year the problem is you're going to wind up firing Joe Judge next year anyway, because he's not going to be a winning coach. The division is getting tougher. Dallas is finally showing the potential we've been waiting for with Dak. The Eagles wound up having a better season than we originally thought with Jalen Hurts as quarterback, and Nick Sirianni actually did a pretty good job. And on top of that, the Washington football team, in my opinion, is one quarterback away from being really competitive.
Yes.
Nothing against Taylor Heineke, but Taylor Heineke is a backup. I mean, we could just see it. I think he shows you some things, but he's really better suited to be a backup quarterback. You already know going into 2022 that those three teams are going to be better than you. So why are you wasting your time keeping Joe Judge? So while I see the Maras' point in that they don't want to just do another turnover for 2 years, because they did it with McAdoo, they did it with Pat Shurmur, and now they might do it with Joe Judge. The fact is that he really hasn't given you any. Well, let me rephrase that. You see, last year when he went 6-10, and everybody thought that he was going to be, oh yeah, Joe Judge is great. He almost won the division. He was 6-10. And everybody was ripping the Philadelphia Eagles for benching Jalen Hurts and going with Nate Sudfeld and everything. And Joe Judge, everybody thought Joe Judge was the cat's meow. Everybody thought Joe Judge was great. Oh, yeah, he's going to be awesome. He almost won a division this year. He was 4 games under 500. Okay? Fast forward to this year. Gettleman, again, puts all his chips in the middle of the table. Goes out and gets Kenny Golladay, which I kind of think he bid against himself for Kenny Golladay. Had no choice but to pay Leonard Williams, because Leonard Williams had the franchise tag, was coming off an 11.5 sack season. He gave Logan Ryan, I think, an extension too early, even though a lot of people disagree with me on that. And on top of that, the other guys like Kyle Rudolph and John Ross have played no role on this team whatsoever, little to no role. And now you're kind of saddled with these contracts going into 2022. You're saddled with these guys. You might as well just run it back with them.
Right.
You're not cutting Adoree Jackson. You're not cutting Leonard Williams. You're not cutting Kenny Galladay. We don't know what you think of Saquon Barkley at this point, and you're probably going to run it back with Daniel Jones.
Mm-hmm.
So you're keeping basically the same exact team as last year. So here is my thing. My advice to the Giants would be hire from within. I would hire a guy from within the organization to be your new general manager. A guy who can work with Judge, because this is where it works out perfectly. Okay? You bring in a guy like that. Now, I don't know who that guy is. That's not up to me. I don't really know the hierarchy of the Giants' executive tree. But you bring the guy in to be the interim general, I don't even know if you make him the interim general manager. But he already has a relationship with Judge. He already has a relationship with Joe Judge. And if the Maras are dead set on keeping Joe Judge, that's where you pivot to. Because let's call a spade a spade. Joe Judge is going to be a lame duck coach under a general manager, under a new general manager from outside the organization. Now, look, at the end of the day in 2022, maybe this all works out. The Giants wind up playing a lot better, and all of a sudden they're competing for a playoff spot. I don't know. But my honest opinion is that they need to hire from within.
I mean, I agree with you to a point, but do you really want to hire someone who's just everyone knows how bad of a job Gettleman did as GM? Do you really want someone who was under his regime to really take over this team as GM?
But the question becomes, if you're a general manager, you go to interview with the New York Giants, and they say, you really have to. I'm just reminding you that we're not changing the coach.
Right.
What's the first thing as a general manager that you would want to do?
I would want to fire Joe Judge.
You want to fire Joe Judge, and you want to hire a coach that you could, because the timelines are off.
Right.
Okay. Jake Asman always said it perfectly about timelines on his show. That's why hiring Douglas with Saleh is perfect, because they're attached to the hip. They're together through thick and thin for the next few years.
Right.
You don't have to really worry about one getting fired over the other one. The problem with bringing in a new general manager and keeping Joe Judge is it's going to be rinse and repeat in 2023. Because you're going to want, now that GM will finally get to bring in his own coach. And then on top of that, you're going to have to get a new quarterback, because Daniel Jones is probably not going to be there next year if he has another crappy season. Saquon Barkley's probably not going to be there if he continues to play like crap and get hurt. It might be a lot easier to cut guys in 2023 compared to 2022. So in my opinion, hiring a guy within the organization right now, if the idea is to keep Joe Judge, it's going to make for an easy transition.
Right.
So for example, for the draft, who gets the blame if the picks wind up crappy? The new GM or Joe Judge? See? Free agent signings. What if one philosophy is completely different from the other? Now, the Giants don't really have a lot of money to sign free agents. I know they'll cut a few guys, but what if the new GM's is like Douglas and says, I don't really want to break the bank for these guys, because we don't really need that right now. We kind of need the guys who we paid big money to be superstars, and we need them to be better.
And I think that's the problem too, because the guys you paid big, like last year was all false hope, I believe, because Gettleman went out this season and got guys who they thought was necessary in getting and re-signing. Granted, maybe getting a guy like Kenny Galladay was a bit of a reach, but still, you needed a true number one wide receiver, and he was the best one available. You got him. That's great. You got a guy like Adoree Jackson to add to what we thought was a great defense. It turns out not. It's actually pretty bad. And they added all these guys, and now they're looking like what the Jets were a few years ago almost. When the Jets were like, the Jets were just a couple pieces away from being a thing. And what did Mike McCagnon do? He went out and bought all these players, Le'Veon Bell, Jermaine Johnson, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You got all these guys, and it turns out Jets sucked. We sucked, and we need to blow everything up. And I think we needed to do that, and I think that's what the Giants need to do now. Granted, yeah, you can't cut these guys, like you said, you can't cut these guys this year in this offseason. No, but 2023, you might have to blow everything up, get rid of Daniel Jones, get rid of Joe Judge, whoever the GM will be, Saquon Barkley, and you got to start fresh because right now the Giants are in a deep hole.
Like, for example, would you want Joe Judge if you're the general manager?
No.
See?
So
if you want a reputable general manager, a guy that comes with a very good resume, a very strong resume from whatever team they pick from, now you have to whittle it down to somebody who knows Joe Judge.
Right.
You have to whittle it down to somebody who can work with Joe Judge. And can you find that guy? And more times than not, what happens, Klim, is you wind up picking the guy that you don't really want, but he's the only guy who's willing to do it.
Like
and that's why I bring up Idzik. Exactly. Because let's call what Idzik was. He was a fucking pencil pusher. That's exactly what he was. Director of Football Administration, you're a pencil pusher. That is a job that, to me, I don't even know what the hell it is. But you can't sit there and tell me that Idzik was making these really deep decisions for the Seattle Seahawks when they hired him. Okay? But the Jets got stuck with him. He was the only one that wanted to work with Rex Ryan. So you knew it was going to make for a weird relationship. And the thing is, like, and I'm going to pivot to the Jets, just detour to the Jets really quickly about, did you see Rex Ryan's comments earlier in the week?
No.
Rex Ryan basically came out, and this is where I am so tired of listening to fucking Rex Ryan. All right. Love the guy when he's with the Jets. At the end of the day, he was a failure. And at the end of the day also, he takes zero accountability for his failures. It's always someone else's fault. It's never Rex's fault. Rex came out last week, and he basically said that during, I think, the year of the Idzik 12 or whatever year Idzik was, the first year that Idzik was general manager, he wanted to draft Tyrann Mathieu and Travis Kelce. And he was overruled by Idzik. So here's what I'm going to call bullshit on that. Number one, the only reason why Idzik got that job was because of you.
Right.
You were the reason why he got that job, because no one else wanted to work with you. He was the only guy that wanted to work with him. Do you really think that John Idzik has that much leverage over Rex Ryan? A guy who the Johnsons worshipped, like thought he was the greatest thing that ever walked into the building at Florham Park? And all you have to do is look at the draft picks. Look at the first-round draft picks. Every pick is defense. You're trying to tell me that Rex had no input on those picks? I find that really, really hard to believe. And he coincidentally picks two of the best players in football today.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even like they went like, oh, you know what? We're not going to draft this safety. We'll draft another one. They went Sheldon Richardson with their first pick. Then they went D. Milner, and then they went Geno Smith in the second round. It's not like they went safety and tight end. No.
But then
Tyrann Mathieu won the third round.
The year after that, they drafted Quentin Coples. The year after that, they drafted Calvin Pryor. You're telling me that Rex had no input on those picks? That he didn't want Quentin Coples, who had a reputation of having a lazy motor, a guy who took plays off. He was a pass rusher, but he took plays off. Calvin Pryor was nothing more than a hard-hitting safety, and he loved that about Calvin Pryor. That's all he cared about, was the guy could hit. But this is what I mean. Now you're throwing Idzik under the bus how many years later? And we're supposed to believe this bullshit? At least I don't. And that's what I mean about Rex Ryan. Everybody worships Rex because those were the last two great years the Jets had was under him. If fans had their way, they would have erected a fucking statue in front of MetLife Stadium for him. But what they forget very easily is he was ultimately a failure. He was a failure because, number one, never developed Mark Sanchez.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, after all the veterans got old from those 2009, 2010 teams like Bart Scott and Jim Leonard and Jason Taylor, LaDainian Tomlinson, they all got old. Keller was getting hurt all the time. What happened? He never replaced those guys. And that's where you look to the draft. He never replaced any of those players. And the guys he drafted were crap. Kyle Wilson was a bad draft pick, even though we liked it at the time, but he just wasn't a good cornerback. It was a good pick. I'm not saying it wasn't, but he never developed them. Muhammad Wilkerson? Okay, Muhammad Wilkerson was decent under Rex, but as soon as Muhammad Wilkerson got his big contract, completely just wasted away.
Yep.
Quentin Coples was a disaster. Calvin Pryor was a disaster. Sheldon Richardson was, he was okay, but he had an attitude problem. But the thing is, again, is that that's where we have the issues. Because now it's a case of the general manager and the coach are not on the same page.
Right.
And that's what makes for a volatile franchise. Now, listen, the new GM could easily say, well, if I got to stomach Judge for a year, I guess I have no choice. And during draft day, the GM could say to Judge, well, fuck you. I'm going to overrule you because I have the big contract and you're the one whose ass is on the line. But if you want a seamless environment for next year for the Giants, make an interim GM for Judge. And then what you do is after it's all over and if Judge still hasn't shown you anything, then you can get rid of both and say, well, we've asked him to step down and now we're going to hire a new general manager with a new coach. That's how you do it. The minute you start bringing in a GM who has to inherit a coach, never works well. The coach is always looking over his shoulder every 10 seconds. It's going to make for a very uncomfortable work environment for a year. And trust me, when you're Joe Judge in your third year with the New York Giants, you've accomplished absolutely nothing in 2 years. That third year, you're going to be looking over your shoulder every 10 seconds for the axe to fall.
You're right. No, you're absolutely right on that.
All right, let's jump to the Jets, who finish out their season. They play the Bucs on Sunday. Tom Brady coming back to MetLife Stadium. You look at a tale of two teams, right, Klim? Mm-hmm. So we have the Giants, who are a complete mess right now, and they're not really sure where to fix it. You see, we knew what the Jets were going to be in 2021. We knew they weren't going to be a very good team, but it was just about building the foundation. That's all it was about. Mm-hmm. It's about building the foundation for next year and the year after that. It's about building those depth pieces and hoping you find a few starters out of it at the end of the day. And as far as I'm concerned, mission accomplished.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's exactly what we're seeing right now. Now, look, the Jets are 4-11. 4-11, probably going to finish the season 4-13. Because I don't know if they're going to beat. I don't think they're going to beat Tampa, and I definitely don't think they're going to beat Buffalo, especially in Buffalo when Buffalo has something to play for.
Right.
But it's not about that. It's not about that. It's about looking at those foundational pieces. And what have we seen so far this year, Klim?
Tons of improvement.
Michael Carter taking a big step forward and being a running back. Michael Carter II being one of the top slot corners in the league. Bryce Hall taking a step forward in year 2. Elijah Moore being a very dangerous weapon in the slot. Maybe even moves him out wide. Elijah Vera-Tucker having a solid season at guard. George Fant, of all guys, having a solid season at tackle. I think he's only given up 1 sack this year since he took over for Becton. Eccles has been a decent pickup on the other side.
Zach Wilson's looked better.
Zach Wilson has looked better. Jason Pinnock now I think he's going to be converted to a safety because he plays the position better than he did as a corner. These are little things. And then you're finding UDFAs out of nowhere, guys like Elijah Riley. Mm-hmm. And, oh, by the way, we have the best kick returner in the league in Braxton Berrios. These are like little things, but they're things you should be excited about if you're a Jets fan
Mm-hmm.
for next year. Phase 1 complete. We found some foundational pieces. Now we go into phase 2. And in my opinion, next year in 2022, oh, crap, did I just lose you? Ah, there we
No,
go.
I'm here.
No, something just happened with my screen. My screen just like totally like it kicked you out, and I thought it got disconnected. So my bad.
What the hell's going on?
So now we go into 2022, Klim. And now we go into 2 first-round picks, most likely 2 top 10 picks. 2 second-round picks, top 10 picks, most likely, because Carolina's been crap in the bag. We'll get into that later. And now you build the foundation. So last year, 2021, focused on offense. Now in 2022, you focus on defense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not a big fan of drafting secondary guys with the first 2 picks in the first round. I don't want Stingley and Hamilton together. Not what I want. We tried that with Adams and May. It didn't really work out. Didn't work out too well. But you can get a pass rusher. I know you're not going to get Aiden Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeau. That's okay. I'm not going to go crazy about that. You could draft this kid from Purdue that a lot of people think is going to be really good. You could draft Kyle Hamilton. You could draft an offensive lineman, Evan Neal, or the kid from NC State, I think. I forgot his name. You could go in that direction. You could draft a receiver for Zach Wilson. Kid from Alabama. I think his name is Jamison Williams.
Oh, he's good.
So he's projected to be a top 10 pick. You could trade down. You could take the second pick and trade down. Maybe a team comes calling because they want one of the quarterbacks. We haven't seen the quarterbacks perform at the combine yet. That could make a huge difference. A guy like Matt Corral, Malik Willis. If these guys have strong combines, teams are going to come calling.
Mm-hmm.
And then you attack free agency. You have $56 million in free agency. You could probably make some cuts to get it up a little bit more. The one guy I would say don't cut right now is George Fant. I think he's been too valuable to the line. I know he's going to cost like $12 million this year. I think you got to keep him.
Yeah.
Crowder's coming off the books. He most likely won't be back. But the one guy right now you must re-sign is Braxton Berrios.
Oh, yeah. He's so good. He's so good.
Re-sign Braxton Berrios. He is extremely dangerous to the point where the Jaguars didn't even kick to him after he scored the touchdown.
I know. That was funny.
And then on top of that, he's been proven to be a very valuable weapon out of the slot for Zach Wilson.
You know, if he's reminding me of you probably remember him, Danny Woodhead a little bit.
Yeah.
Just
he's
very
like our
versatile.
He's like our Julian Edelman. That's how I look at him. And the thing is like he has become a stud player. I think Douglas will definitely keep him. I don't doubt that he's going to try to resign. I mean, he's gonna play by his own rules, though. He's not going to overpay for Braxton Berrios. But that kind of return, man, you must do whatever it takes to keep.
It's so crucial to have a good kick return guy because look at the years the Jets were really good. You know, when they went to the 2 AFC Championship games. They had Leon Washington and Brad Smith. They were 2 of the deadliest return guys in the game, and look how crucial it was to the game sometimes.
But I'll even go back to a few years ago when they had Andre Roberts.
Oh my God, that was so.
Andre Roberts was an amazing kick returner.
He was so good, so good.
So right now, you're seeing foundational pieces put in place. Now look, Eccles should not be guaranteed a job for next year. I think Hall should definitely get the job next year regardless.
Mm-hmm.
But you're seeing those guys build. And the other thing, too, is like I know a lot of people keep shredding the 2020 draft class. I got to give them more time. I just can't give up on these guys too soon.
The only one I'm really giving up on is really like Denzel Mims because
yeah, I don't know what's going on with him, man.
It's just not looking good every chance he gets.
I don't know what to make of why he's playing so bad. Because, I expected him, especially when he got more reps, I expected him to be better.
Right.
And he's been worse.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, he hasn't.
Now, I don't know. Now, listen. The problem is, right now with Denzel Mims, he has no trade value.
Yeah.
He has zero trade value. He has zero trade value in the offseason. No, wait a minute. Now, let me rephrase that. They might be able to get something for Denzel Mims. in the offseason, clean slate and whatever. But I guess my question is, for a guy that had a first-round grade on a lot of mock drafts, wound up going in the bottom of the second round, do you really want to settle for like a fifth-round pick for him?
No, that's the thing, and I think he might. The Jets might do what they did when we had Stephen Hill. Highly touted wide receiver coming out of the draft, got him in the second round. Unfortunately, just have to play out the contract. Unfortunately, until he either plays good or
Maybe that's not a bad thing though. Like maybe Mims needs a whole offseason to just learn the offense, get his act together, and then that's it.
No, you're right. I think so.
Maybe.
I think that, and to the other person, I think I'm starting to lose it on him just because he hasn't played, and the best ability is availability. It's Mekhi Becton. It really, he's a stud when he's on the field.
I see your point, but I won't give up on him just yet.
I'm not giving up on him either, but it's like
he's got to get. I think the key to Mekhi Becton being successful is he's got to get his weight down.
Yeah,
I think his weight is an issue. They're just not telling you that.
Yeah,
I think they're trying to keep that under wraps because he should have been back by now. And the fact that he's going to basically miss the entire season after week 1 tells me that the weight and the conditioning are an issue. And again, in my opinion, that to me is inexcusable for an NFL football player because you make millions of dollars. Don't tell me you can't hire a personal chef to come in and cook your shit for you. So that way you just, and you just keep with your daily conditioning and daily routine.
Yeah,
but again, like another guy, like a lot of people seem to be pissing on, but I get it and I don't get it, is Ashton Davis. Ashton Davis hasn't played that great. I'm not saying he's been like an elite safety, but the guy has 2 interceptions and 3 forced fumbles this year. Okay? And on top of that, he was really kind of thrust into action after Marcus May went down with an injury and LaMarcus Joyner was out for the season.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a little unfair to criticize Ashton Davis. As a depth piece, I think he could definitely help the team. Will he be a starter next year? I don't know. I'm not sure how the Jets are going to view the safeties, but they also don't view that as a primary position either.
Right.
Solid defenses don't predicate the secondary as a primary need position, as an essential worker, basically. Okay. He values the front 4 and the linebackers more than anything, because that's what gets the pressure on the quarterback, and that's why safeties can kind of hide and just wait for a shitty throw, and then they can pick it off. And I expect that to be the same thing. But one thing that you have to like about the game that on Sunday, I know it was the Jaguars and everything, and that's fine. And of course, you have your Jet fans who are pissed off because they won and they hurt their draft stock. But the way they came out to play that game with 20 guys on the COVID protocol, without their head coach and Robert Saleh, starting 2 guys off the practice squad they signed on earlier in the week on Sunday. The way they came out, Zach is definitely getting better.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he still has some questionable throws, but he makes plays, man. He makes plays. And for a rookie, that's exactly what you want to see. And the important thing about what we're seeing right now, too, is no interceptions in the last 3 games.
Yeah.
That's a huge part. Now, he's playing a much tougher defense on Sunday with Tampa. And, of course, this is being hyped as the Todd Bowles revenge game, which I don't really understand what the fuck that means because, quite frankly, Todd Bowles is a terrible coach.
I say, what revenge does he have? He won a Super Bowl last year.
Yeah. But here's the funny part about Todd Bowles. So I saw this and I was going to reply to him, but then I figured Jet fans would just rip me to shreds, so I elected not to. Okay? Jet fans are funny as hell because they read these articles and they automatically agree with what the reporter's saying. So Brian Costello wrote this article about how, or it was more like it was kind of a recap of the game, but he's like, yeah, and Todd Bowles is really going to want to, have his revenge game. So he's going to dial up all these blitzes on the Jets and everything. The last 2 years of Todd Bowles was a rebuild. So it wasn't really his fault that they were bad. Yeah, the funny thing about that is I remember Brian Costello going on Joe Beningo's show all the time and basically ripping Bowles to shreds about how they were unprepared for games and everything like that. Here are the facts about Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles had a chance to get the Jets to the playoffs in 2015 when they went 10-6. And all they had to do was beat the Buffalo Bills, who were out of the playoffs, and Rex Ryan. And the Buffalo Bills looked completely defeated that day. They looked like they could care less. They just wanted to go on vacation. That's all that mattered. And the Jets still lost. Fitzpatrick had a terrible game. There was no game plan whatsoever. There was no strategy, and they freaking lost. And that is on Todd Bowles. And that was a team that had Darrelle Revis, Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker, Sheldon Richardson, Snacks Harrison, the works. And they still lost. It was a win-and-in game. How you are not fired up and prepared for that, I will never understand. And they still lost the freaking game. Fast forward. Todd Bowles was the coach who lost to the Browns in Cleveland when they were on that never-ending losing streak. Because he didn't prepare for Baker Mayfield. He only prepared for Tyrod Taylor. So apparently, not only that, but now Todd Bowles has no clue how to make adjustments during games for a quarterback. Shall I continue? The horrible draft picks over the years, the fact that they didn't develop any of their draft picks. The fact that he went through 3 offensive coordinators in 4 years only tells me that he had no desire to know anything about offense. And I can forgive that all, but what I can't forgive is the game in November where they lost 41-10 to the Buffalo Bills and Matt Barkley.
Oh, my God. Oh.
Matt freaking Barkley. First play, Matt Barkley threw a 50-yard bomb, and the guy caught it while he was wide open. And then meanwhile, I'm reading these comments from Jet fans like, yeah, he got a raw deal, or, yeah, he was, ownership didn't do right by him. Yeah, because it's always ownership's fault, right? God forbid if I was the owner of a team and I hired a head coach who I thought was a guy who knew how to coach guys. But yeah, it's my fault that I didn't give him an all-star at every position.
It's so easy to be a Monday morning quarterback, and I hate when people look at that. As a Jets fan, I will man up and say, yeah, I wanted Tremaine Johnson here. And I know that everyone else who was a Jets fan loved that Tremaine Johnson was signed here. Same thing about Le'Veon Bell. Same thing about Buster Skrine. All these players. I love the signing of all these players. I'm like, oh my God, this is it. We're the blah, 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 all this shit. And then they suck. I'm like, you know what? I'll fess up to it. I wanted these players here. I'll be a man. But some of these Jet fans are like, oh, I can't believe we signed that guy. I can't believe we signed that guy. Yeah, they gave him a raw deal. Yeah, in hindsight, yeah, we probably did give him a raw deal because all these players sucked. But when's it on Todd Bowles to develop some of these players that we drafted?
And that's my point. See, that's my point. When they hate a guy, they rip him to shreds. Adam Gase got shredded up and down, and there were plenty of times where I killed Gase because just lack of preparation always bothered me. But there were plenty of times also where I'm like, it's not really his fault that the team isn't, if Darnold is throwing these bad interceptions, that's not on Gase. That's on fucking Darnold.
Right.
Okay? But it didn't matter, though. It didn't matter, Klim, because when they love a guy, when fan bases love a guy, when media writers love a guy, they will defend him up and down. Up and down, they will defend him. I don't understand what Todd Bowles should have revenge for. He was a losing coach for 4 years with a crappy team. He did not develop players the way he should have. His draft picks were terrible. He's also, I'm curious who was the one who wanted to draft Christian Hackenberg. Him or freaking McCagnon.
Oh, I forgot we had him.
But do you see what I mean, though? Everybody forgets that part. Because Todd Bowles won a Super Bowl, all the Jet fans are like, yeah, well, he's a defensive coordinator. He's not a head coach. So it's like before we sit here and start doing the Todd Bowles revenge game, I mean, give me a break. For 4 years, the Jets gave him opportunity after opportunity, and he failed. Because if I was the owner of a team, I shouldn't have to give you hundreds of millions of dollars worth of players. I should entrust my general manager and my head coach to develop the guys you put on the field. And Todd Bowles didn't do that after that 10-6 season. Those teams were a disaster. He didn't even get anything out of Leonard Williams, who was a can't-miss defensive prospect. He didn't really get anything out of Jamal Adams either.
Darren Lee.
Darren Lee was an undersized linebacker. Horrible pick. So don't sit there and tell me that Todd Bowles has all this pent-up frustration about being fired from the Jets 2 years ago. He was a horrible head coach. Horrible. And the fact that he was around with this team for 4 years, he should be fucking grateful that he was the head coach for 4 years. All right, that being said, let's get on to number 3. And one of the biggest stories that we weren't able to cover because we were out for so long. The Mets have hired Buck Showalter as their new manager, which is what we wanted. Right, Klim?
Oh, my God.
Klim, it had to be Buck.
It had to.
There was no way. There is no way Steve Cohen and Sandy Alderson could have ever sold Joe Espada or Matt Quatraro, if I'm even pronouncing his name correctly, over Buck Showalter. There's no way. Man. There's no way.
And especially with the way that you've seen baseball the past couple of years, that it's been almost fed into the fans' minds that analytics is the way to go. Analytics is the way of baseball now. All this shit about analytics. Meanwhile, we saw, 3 of the past 4 World Series managers coach it the way you're supposed to coach baseball? Dusty Baker. The dude who just coached the Braves. I don't know his
I think
him. The way the Nationals won the World Series 2 years ago was through not through analytics. You don't need analytics to win baseball games now. And hiring Buck Showalter is exactly what the Mets need.
But that's what we've been saying for so long. We've been wanting a guy of Buck's magnitude to be the manager of this team. We were tired of these one-year wonders or guys who had never managed a team before in their life. No disrespect to Luis Rojas, but the fact is Rojas was not that great of a manager. I think his team was too laid back more times than not. I didn't like his decision-making during games. I didn't like his bullpen, the way he kind of used the bullpen. I didn't like it. And I'm sure I'm not alone. But you need a guy of Buck's resume to navigate this team. And he knows how to win in New York because he's done it before. There's no way could you imagine if they had said the Mets are going to announce that Joe Espada is the new manager? That would have been like a torpedo to the offseason. You got Max Scherzer, who I'm sure influenced that decision, by the way. Good for Max. Starling Marte, Mark Canha, Eduardo Escobar. Now you just need the missing piece.
And we're not done yet. That's the good part.
That's the good part.
We're not done yet.
So I couldn't be more excited for Buck to be here. And I'm actually very excited to see who's going to be the coaches on the team.
So am I. Oh, we already know Jeremy Hefner's here.
Actually, know who would be a badass hitting coach? Because he was the guy who recommended Showalter.
Who?
Adam Jones.
Ooh, that was my guy. I loved
I was a big Adam Jones fan. I
loved Adam Jones.
The Orioles. That would be awesome because he's the one who also not him so to speak, but he was interviewed and he was the one who pushed. He wanted the Mets to hire Buck.
I loved Adam Jones.
So I would love to see. I hope Adam Jones gets a shot on the Mets in some facet as a coach.
But no, that's what's going to round out the team is what's going to make these coaches who these coaches are going to be because we know what Buck Showalter can do. But now it's who's going to be the hitting coach, who's going to be the pitching coach. Well, Jeremy Hefner, but who's going to be the bench coach? All this shit, that all factors in. And when the Mets went to the World Series in 2015, yeah, Terry Collins was a good coach, but I think I think a lot of credit wasn't given enough to guys like Kevin Long, who was the hitting coach of that team.
Yeah, but that was the type of hire you needed. You needed to make a splash hire. That is a splash. No disrespect to Joe Espada because I'm sure he's a good bench coach and everything. New York would not have been a good place for him. He would have been under tremendous pressure right off the bat to win. And I don't know if guys like that can handle it right away.
You needed someone established as the head coach, because even going back to Bobby Valentine, Bobby Valentine was an established manager at that time. What did he do? He took him to the World Series. Terry Collins, he didn't have the best resume as a manager, but he had experience as a manager. What did he do? Took the Mets to the World Series. After Terry Collins left, you hired. Why can't I think of his name?
Rojas. Oh,
no,
Beltran.
not Rojas. The guy before Rojas.
Mickey
Callaway. Mickey Callaway, no experience as a manager. Mets sucked. What did the Mets do? They hired Carlos Beltran, no experience as a manager. They hired Luis Rojas, no experience as a manager, and we suck. Now you have an experienced manager who knows how to win, who knows how to win in New York, who knows how to get to the playoffs in Buck Showalter. And this is exactly what the Mets need.
And now ticket prices just went through the roof at Citi Field.
Oh, I don't care. I will pay X amount, blank checks to go see the Mets right now. I don't care. I'm all about this Mets team right now.
Yeah, you're really a big spender when you live at home.
That's happens when I live rent free.
Yeah. Lucky you.
No, but that's what it is, though. I mean, you don't think that people are going
to be the other thing, part of it too is, and I totally agree with you. It's the fact of you're putting a veteran roster together.
Yeah.
Everybody you signed so far is veteran. Starling Marte, Max Scherzer, Mark Canha, Eduardo Escobar. These guys have all been in the league. They're not just rookies coming up. Then I can understand if you want to go with a manager that doesn't have a lot of experience or no experience. But for this type of team, and I'm sorry, this type of pressure, because the Met fan is tired of the mediocrity. The only way that gets fixed is by Buck Showalter, or rarely do I ever agree with the guy, but Sal Licata, Bruce Bochy.
Yeah.
It has to be a veteran manager with winning experience, not necessarily winning a World Series ring, but a guy who can just put this team back on the map. Same thing with a guy like Dusty Baker. Mm-hmm. I'm not a huge Dusty fan, but the guy's a winner. He's a winning manager. He's won a World Series. He completely balanced out the Houston Astros after the sign stealing. That was the right call at the time that Houston made to bring in Dusty Baker after A.J. Hinch lost his job.
Mm-hmm.
That's the type of guy you need. And it's like, it's finally the Mets are making smart decisions. And we ripped this team months ago because of Cohen's Twitter shit. Alderson really, Alderson being more naive than ever about, Jared Porter and Zach Scott. Then on top of that, there was more drama with the Mets after Matt signed with the Cardinals. And then the Mets just did a complete 180.
Mm-hmm.
Eduardo Escobar, you don't get excited for guys like Eduardo Escobar but you feel like they're kind of a precursor to something bigger.
Right.
Then all of a sudden, here comes Starling Marte. You and I have been talking for months about how we wanted Starling Marte for center field.
We didn't think but in you and I both attested to this, that we didn't think we were going to get Starling Marte.
We didn't think so. Yeah. I remember we had Tim Healy on, and he didn't think it was going to happen either.
Yeah.
And the thing was like we were just as shocked that Marte was going to come to the Mets.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kept building. And then all of a sudden, Mark Canha, not a great player, but not a bad player, good defense. He's like a career 240 hitter, but I'm more comfortable with him in the outfield than I am with Dom Smith for some reason. And then after that, I was like, no way they're getting Max Scherzer. There's no way. He just vetoed a trade to them last year.
Right.
But now I get it. Now I get why he vetoed that trade, because he didn't think the Mets were a playoff team. And he wanted to go to a playoff team. And I don't care that it costs us $45 million a year for Scherzer. I don't care. I've been wanting the Mets to do this for so long. I did not give a shit how much it cost. So it is a very fun time to be a Met fan again. Hopefully the lockout gets lifted soon. Now, prelude to my next part of the Mets, and that's about Jeff McNeil. Because SNY reported that once the lockout is lifted, Jeff McNeil is on the trading block. So I have a theory. I have a theory of how this is going to play out. I was under the assumption that Eduardo Escobar would be a third baseman this year. Now I'm starting to say to myself that if they trade Jeff McNeil, they're going to move Eduardo Escobar to second base. And guess who they're going to get to play third base?
Chris Bryant.
Boom. And I have convinced myself that that's where they're headed.
Look, I think it's without a doubt that Chris Bryant's going to be on this team. I mean,
It's not going to be J.D. Davis playing third base.
And even if he plays third base, I have no problems with that because then that means just adds to the outfield.
Here's the other thing. Now, if Javi Baez was still a free agent, then I could say to myself, okay, maybe the Mets will have Javi play second base and they'll keep Escobar at third.
Right.
Javi signed with the Tigers. So I don't know what other second basemen are out there that the Mets can go after. Unless maybe they want, can Trevor Story play second base? But I don't see them going after Trevor Story. I really see them making a splash for Chris Bryant.
Yeah. So
and I think, and like I keep coming back to this. As soon as that McNeil story broke, I kept saying to myself, I'm like, I don't know how Escobar is as a second baseman. I don't know if he's any good or not. But it just seems like that's where they're headed.
And the thing is with McNeil, like he still has some value in him where you can get, and if you want to trade a guy like Ronnie Mauricio, you can get a decent deal back for him. Like you can get something good, maybe whether it's a guy in the bullpen, a good guy in the bullpen, or even another arm. Like that, you can get something out of that.
You can, and I agree with you. The funny thing is that McNeil has value, and a lot of people may not be a big fan of trading McNeil.
Mm-hmm.
But my attitude is, you got to get everybody out. McNeil has been a good player, but I think we can move on without him. I don't think he is the missing piece to a World Series title. I think he's a guy I'm perfectly content with moving on from. And if that means getting Chris Bryant here, I'm all in. Like, I'm all in. That's where I'm headed with that. Thoughts?
No, I'm sorry. I was just looking because it was also running through my mind that there has been no talk of re-signing Michael Conforto. So I was just like, you know what? We're probably not even going to sign him back.
No, he's not coming back. I think he's done.
But I think with the Mets fans, and this is what you kind of have to like about the Mets fans, and this is what kind of like made a difference between Mets fans and Yankees fans. Because for years and years and years on end, we saw Yankees buy their way to the playoffs and buy their way to the playoffs. The Mets, unfortunately, have never been able to be like that because they never even had the money or the Wilpons, whatever it was. So they've prided themselves on using homegrown talent to get themselves to the playoffs, get themselves to a World Series, whatever. And I think that's what the Mets kind of liked with, why they were making kind of a big deal of not re-signing Michael Conforto back, or even maybe trading the fact of Jeff McNeil, because Jeff McNeil, relatively, when he was a rookie for the Mets, he came out of nowhere. He was relatively nothing in the minor league system. Came out of nowhere and did great for a few years for the Mets. Had a bad year last year, unfortunately. So that's why I guess like losing a guy like McNeil, you kind of don't want to see it, but you may need to do it in order to get a guy like Chris Bryant on this team.
I'm okay with it. I really don't have a problem with losing McNeil.
I don't have a problem with it.
His numbers to me have not been as impressive as a few years ago.
No, I 100% agree.
He's been hurt, but I also think Rojas kind of fucked with him a little bit because he kept moving him around the batting order. McNeil was better suited for like 1 or 2 hole, but Nimmo is a better table setter. He draws walks, he gets on base, he steals bases. McNeil is not really that fast, if I remember correctly. But I'm okay with it. I think he's expendable.
So no, I definitely think so too.
Chris Bryant, you can have him. Like I'm dead serious.
If that's the sacrifice we're making for it, like if we're like, okay, we gotta get rid of McNeil, but we get Chris Bryant, by all means, let it happen. Let it happen.
So my guess is that they're going to want Escobar to play second base, and they're going to try to make a strong push for Chris Bryant. But I think it's contingent on them getting a deal with Bryant done. So my expectation is they are going to push hard to sign Bryant right off the bat.
Mhm.
Then they're going to trade McNeil.
Oh yeah, and even like I said, even if the case is you want to put JD at third, I have no problem because then you have a complete outfield with.
I don't think Alderson likes JD. I don't think Alderson's a big JD guy. I think JD's more of a utility guy off the bench.
So do I. But I would say, what I'm trying to justify it as is like if he is a starter in our lineup, that's not the worst thing in the. It's not the worst thing in the world.
I mean, at the same time, also you have Dom, and what are you going to do with Dom?
Exactly.
Dom's going to, if you have a universal DH, now that's a different story. That could definitely, you can play to your advantages with that. You can have Dom be the universal DH. You can have, that's where a guy like Robbie Cano will probably come into play at some point. Because I don't think Robbie Cano's going to play a lot of second base.
I keep forgetting we have Cano.
Dude, he wasn't bad. I mean, like you guys.
No, I know. It's just like, oh,
this horror show of a signing. He really wasn't. I mean, he was actually a pretty decent hitter before he tested positive for whatever it was. So, all right, which brings us to number 4. Which brings us to, we've talked so much about the Mets, but have you noticed nobody's really been talking about the Yankees that much?
They've been quiet.
So my question is, are you surprised the Yankees haven't been aggressive so far in free agency?
No, I'm not. Honestly, I'm not surprised at all because they had, and this was a problem we've been saying back when we were at the other show, on the other place, that they were eventually going to have to sign these guys like Judge, Torres, Sanchez, all these guys. They were have to, and now it's coming to bite them in the ass because it looks like they want to keep these guys, and that's why they're not making any of these big moves.
I have to admit, I was surprised that they weren't in on Seager.
Mm-hmm.
On Corey Seager. I'm not surprised about Baez. Baez was never going to go to the Yankees. I have to admit, I am surprised the Yankees aren't being more aggressive. That it's other teams like Toronto and Texas and Detroit and the Mets of all teams that are being super aggressive with free agency. And what's been weird about this offseason, Klim, is that the teams you weren't expecting to spend a lot of money spent a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
The Texas Rangers spent almost $500 million on 3 players.
Yeah, and they weren't even close to being good last year.
Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, and John Gray.
Yeah.
The Toronto Blue Jays gave Kevin Gausman $115 million. The Seattle Mariners gave Robbie Ray $115 million. The Tigers gave Javier Baez I think it was $140. They signed Eduardo Rodriguez. They gave him like $75 million. I have to admit, I'm very surprised because I figured the Yankees would have been in on Seager. Now comes an interesting kind of plot twist, though. Where do the Yankees go for shortstop? Because you need a shortstop. You cannot go into next year with Gleyber Torres as your starting shortstop. So now it becomes an interesting kind of dilemma. Do you pivot and go for Carlos Correa, who was vilified by Yankee fans endlessly for the cheating scandal? Do you get desperate and give Carlos Correa whatever he wants to play shortstop?
It's tough to say because
the only other option is Trevor Story.
I think the problem. I think that's the option to go.
The problem with Trevor Story is if you're a Yankee fan and you hear they signed Trevor Story, how excited are you about Trevor Story?
Well, it's
the feeling of like a consolation prize, like you had to settle for Trevor Story.
Well, it's what it is. It's the same way Yankee fans reacted when they signed DJ LeMahieu. Because no one ever, like real baseball fans will know that if you get Trevor Story, especially in Yankee Stadium, I don't care if it's left field or right field, you're getting a great power bat with that. And I'm pretty sure former teammate DJ LeMahieu is probably advocating for Trevor Story to be in the pinstripes this year. But that's the thing, though. Like, you see like a guy like Trevor Story. It's like if you're like a casual Yankee fan, it's like who the hell's Trevor Story? Same thing with like who they were like who the hell's DJ LeMahieu? And he comes up here, lights it up, and almost an MVP. And it's like, oh my God, he's the greatest player ever. That's what I feel like it's going to be like if the Yankees sign Trevor Story. Well, I think signing Trevor Story is honestly a better signing than Carlos Correa right now. If I was the Yankees,
see, the thing is, I think Cashman's moves over the past year or so have left a lot to be desired. Okay? I mean, really?
Yes.
It's party time post-COVID?
Oh, yeah. Like I said, Pabst Blue Ribbon, the best medicine for COVID.
I'm convinced
that's free advertising.
I'm convinced those are the beers you got from Brian Myers again.
Look, tangent real quick. I've been drinking Pabst Blue Ribbon for a while now. I'm a big Pabst Blue Ribbon advocate. I love it's probably my favorite beer.
Shameless plug for PBR. Got it.
Exactly. Shameless plug.
So, okay. So getting back to the Yankees, a lot of Cashman's decisions to me have been very meh.
Mm-hmm.
I just haven't really been blown away by the moves that he's made. Now, he's made some good moves. He's made some very shrewd moves. But a lot of those moves in a way have backfired, Klim.
Mm-hmm.
For example, he makes the trade last year for Joey Gallo. And honestly, it was a good deal. I mean, he gave up a lot of prospects for him, but they were more middle prospects, not really any of his top 5 or whatever.
Right.
Those are kind of like the feast or famine prospects in like the 10 to 15 range.
Right.
Like, you might hit on them, but don't expect like blue chip prospect material, is what they're trying to say. On top of that, he gets Texas to pay the salary of Joey Gallo.
Mm-hmm.
So he's basically getting Joey Gallo for nothing. And Joey Gallo was terrible.
Oh,
he was
so bad.
Absolutely terrible. He struck out all the time, barely got on base. Makes the deal for Anthony Rizzo. Great move at the time he made it. It was a desperation move, though. Everybody knows that it was a desperation move to get Rizzo. But again, didn't give up a lot to get him. Gave up, the Cubs wound up paying the salary to get him off the books. And Rizzo came out when he got to the Bronx, he came out hot. Then he got COVID. And then he was a completely different player after that.
Mm-hmm.
You go back to Corey Kluber. Giving him $11 million I thought was insanity. Because he was a guy who had only pitched 2 innings in 2 years. And listen, Kluber came out. He was decent. But what were we always saying about Corey Kluber on the show, Klim?
High risk, high reward.
But it was only a matter of time before he got hurt. And he threw a no-hitter, and then what happened the next start? He had to leave the game.
Yep.
And he was out pretty much until the end of the year. Now Kluber went to Tampa. So you have Kluber, you have Gallo and Rizzo, just very, very questionable for me. The decision to stay with Gleyber Torres at shortstop was a huge disaster. The decision to give Aaron Hicks a 6-year contract was a complete disaster. And then you're resting on Brett Gardner, who's 39 years old, to play center field every day. It's not Gardner's fault.
No.
That's not what he is. But, the Yankees just threw him out there every day. They didn't have a choice. But now even bigger than that, Klim, is we have to question if their ace pitcher, their $324 million pitcher, is worth $324 million. Because while his stats say yes, towards the end of the season, a lot of people were having their doubts.
Yeah, he wasn't looking to Garrett Cole-ish towards the end of the season, like you said.
But how did it all start, though? It was all ever since the spider tack shit.
Mm-hmm.
When spider tack became a banned substance, Cole started to regress.
Right.
He had a bad outing against Toronto at the very end of the season when the Yankees really needed a win. The Yankees stumbled into the wild card game after getting their asses kicked by Tampa and basically winning the last game of the season on an infield single by Aaron Judge. The Yankees had a chance for home field advantage in the wild card game. And thanks to that series against Toronto and that series against Tampa, they lost it. And then they went to Boston and Cole got rocked. He didn't even get out of the 3rd inning. That is not what you pay a $324 million contract for.
Right. And I like Garrett Cole too. I like him a lot. He's
starting to question the Yankee decision making. Is Cashman kind of running his course? Is he not as good as he used to be? Those are the things that, as a Yankee fan, you should be concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
Now, look, there's plenty of time for the Yankees to make some noise, and I expect them to. But I'm definitely very surprised that when that free agency started, they weren't ready to freaking offer Corey Seager whatever he wanted. I was very, very surprised. I was borderline stunned.
I'm actually like surprised like they've been just very quiet, like we mentioned. I mean, but I guess they're maybe trying to figure out what they want to do with Gleyber Torres, Joe Judge, Aaron Judge, Sanchez, Gio, Voit, all these guys because they got to pay him at some point.
You brought Sanchez back because you had no choice. There's no good catchers on the market. Sanchez is better than all the other catchers on the market.
That's sad.
What are you going to do about Luke Voit? Luke Voit, when he's on the field, he's very good, but he's not on the field enough.
Yeah.
What do you do with
Miguel Andujar?
Are you going to sign Rizzo?
Yeah.
Is Gleyber Torres your shortstop next year? If you don't want to go after Story or go after Correa, who's going to play center field? I mean, can you trust Aaron Hicks to play center field next year?
No.
See, there's a lot of issues. Who's going to be in the rotation outside of Taillon and Cole? Is Aroldis Chapman losing a step as a closer? How many last year? Remember that wave where he was just flat out horrible?
Oh yeah.
I mean, he's still a good closer. I'm not saying he's not.
Yeah.
But again, question mark. Oh, by the way, Zach Britton, Tommy John surgery, not going to be back in 2022. That's another big loss for the Yankees. I expect them to be active, but I was very surprised that they have not made any moves. I was very, very surprised. All right, number 5. We'll do some basketball real quickly with this one. The Nets continue to win even without guys, even with all their guys in COVID protocol. They got James Harden back. They're going to get Kevin Durant back, and the return of Kyrie Irving for away games. So that just reeked of desperation, I think, on the Nets' part. But I'm okay with it. I could care less.
I can give a rat's ass. We know once Kyrie gets back onto the court, he's going to be Kyrie Irving.
Net fans aren't going to give a shit.
Yeah, no one's going to care.
Now, one thing I was really impressed about with the Nets was they won with a lot of guys out. Kevin Durant was out. Kyrie Irving was out. They had numerous guys in COVID protocol. And the one guy who has completely stepped up his game on the Nets, and it's almost insane to actually say this, but how good he's been, is Patty Mills.
Oh my gosh, yes.
He has been unreal while those guys were all out with COVID.
I will say you called it. That's the signing you called at the beginning.
That was my favorite fucking signing of the offseason because Patty Mills is a winner. He's coached under Popovich. He's a good leader. He's so good at everything he does. That was exactly the kind of guy I wanted. Sean Marks. That was Sean Marks's San Antonio connection right there. To get Patty.
Averaging 14 points a game, 45% field goal range, 44% from three. Solid numbers.
Now, the only thing I'll tell you is the thing they can't do is they can't burn him out either, though. You got to be careful because he's not used to playing as many minutes as he's playing. He's playing over 30 minutes a night. But now with Durant coming back and Irving coming back and a lot of their other guys from COVID protocol, that'll probably change. But the Nets had a great run they beat the Clippers, they beat the Lakers. Just an all-around strong, just a strong run by the Nets. And that's without Durant, without Kyrie. James Harden having a big couple of games against the Lakers and the Clippers. It's just so they are. As for the Knicks are a team right now, in my opinion, they've won 3 in a row, but they've also taken advantage of the fact that a lot of those teams have been decimated by COVID.
Mm-hmm.
The Hawks losing Trae Young. They lost a few other guys that they really could have used. The Timberwolves didn't have Karl Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, or Anthony Edwards. Those are the 3 best players. And the thing is, the Knicks almost lost that game. And the same thing with the Pistons not having Cade Cunningham. And for a team that's only won 5 games this year, if you don't have a guy like Cade Cunningham, you don't have anything. So Kemba is apparently back in the good graces of Tom Thibodeau. Right?
I wanted to say that because my friend texted me. He was like, it was like a video of like Knicks fans cheering for Kemba, and he texted me a video. And he was like, didn't they like want his head like a week ago? I was like, yeah, Knicks fans are
like, run his ass out of town. Yeah, that's what they always do. Yeah, that's because it's all Kemba's fault that the Knicks were terrible.
Like the dude was vilified a week and a half ago, has one good game, and he earns his way back into the lineup, and now he's all of a sudden a god.
Yeah.
What?
But that's what I mean. That's how they operate. Apparently, it was all Kemba Walker's fault. Then, meanwhile, they sit him on the bench. They make him a DNP coach's decision, and then they still suck. And now you got Julius Randle in COVID protocol. The Knicks are not as good as people are making them out to be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're not a terrible team, but they're also not a very good team either. And the thing is that now you have Derrick Rose out for 8 weeks, which is a tough loss. But the team as a whole, Randall has been awful. He's been absolutely awful. RJ Barrett has struggled. If you don't get the help from the second team, you got nothing. Your starting lineup stinks. But they're just not, Kemba dropped 44. They still lost by 7 to the Wizards. You have Obi Toppin doing between the legs dunks while they're down by 6. I mean, they're not that good of a team right now. And they're getting a break because they're taking advantage of teams that are getting hit with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
The Knicks haven't really gotten hit as bad as other teams. But that's the state of basketball right now. That's about as much time as it's going to take on it. No, it's just there's so much season. It's just tough to really.
Yeah.
It's like hockey. It's like hockey's going until April. You don't really need to go too deep into hockey right now. Or just like with basketball. All right, this is the moment where I wish I had Taylor Dahl on the show because she is skyrocketing up our list of favorite guests. She is literally skyrocketing into our top 2. I would say next to probably Jake. Right. So, Urban Meyer. Well, you got Ken. We already know that. There's no big deal there. We all knew it. Klim, Taylor, and I pretty much expected it. We didn't know when it was going to happen, but we knew it was going to happen.
I said he would. I said 1 year. That was it. I was like, "There's no way."
I said one. I think I said 2 actually. I think I said he was going to make it through this year, but he wasn't going to make it through next year. So, I guess the final straw was apparently an interview or that former Jags kicker Josh Lambo did with and claimed that Urban Meyer basically assaulted him during a practice, like by kicking him or something like that. And it was just never going to end well for Urban Meyer. Let's just say what it was.
No.
It was never going to end well for Urban Meyer. There was just too many problems from the very beginning up until now. The team hadn't checked out on him. He threw his coaches under the bus, tried to minimize how bad the video looked of him with some woman gyrating on his balls, right? And trying to pivot to when Trevor Lawrence went to a bachelor party, which you never want to throw your rookie quarterback, your franchise quarterback under the bus like that. And it just got worse and worse for Urban Meyer. Then the handshake with Vrabel was a problem. He looked like completely disinterested in being a coach in the NFL. And that's what happens with college coaches like him. That's what happens with college coaches that come from a winning pedigree. When they're losing, they don't know how to fix it. They don't know how to stop it. Did I lose you, Klim? Yeah, I think I did. So Klim's video just froze, so he'll probably have to come back on in a minute. Hopefully he comes on soon enough, but we're still going. So getting back to what I was saying, that's what college coaches who win, they have a problem. That's why they don't do well in the NFL more times than not. They're not used to dealing with the losing. They're not used to dealing with the consistent losing. It's very easy to recruit a blue chip high school player out of whatever state who you can scout over and over again. But when it comes to the draft, when it comes to free agency, the scouting isn't really as big as everything else. It becomes a bigger problem for guys like Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer can't sell a high school kid or sell Trevor Lawrence on going to Ohio State. He can't sell James Robinson on going to Ohio State. He has to figure out a way to convince guys to come to Jacksonville, Florida. Jacksonville, Florida, with all due respect, is not an exciting city. It's a boring city. It's a college city. It's not a city that everybody's running to or flocking to when they're a free agent. That's where Urban Meyer ran into problems. But it only got progressively worse as the season went on. His draft picks were questionable. The first game of the season, he gets torched by the Houston Texans and David Culley, who have their own problems. It was just one thing after another. The only way this was going to end was with Urban Meyer getting fired or resigning. The question was, when was that going to happen? You could have had an office pool to tell you when it was going to happen. And just like that, now it's gone. And if this sent a message to NFL teams is stay away from college coaches, especially college coaches with winning pedigrees. Because the Carolina Panthers are figuring that out now with Matt Rule. Matt Rule is driving the Carolina Panthers into oblivion. They're a bad football team. And they were expected to be a lot better, especially in their second year. And that's where Urban Meyer was supposed to come in and be a game changer for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And he wasn't. And you could see as the weeks went on, he was just becoming more disinterested and just more disinterested. He was not used to losing as frequently as he was. He thought he was going to come in and right away become a winning coach with Trevor Lawrence. He probably figured that Trevor Lawrence didn't need any help. And just his arrogant douchebag attitude finally got the better of him. And now the Jacksonville Jaguars are once again looking for another head coach. But if you're a head coach, do you really want to go there? What is exciting about playing in Jacksonville? The only thing that will keep people interested in going to Jacksonville as a head coach is Trevor Lawrence. There is nothing else there. You are not going to Jacksonville to go to say, yep, I really want to coach Laviska Shenault. I really want to coach James O'Shaughnessy. The only selling point for Jacksonville right now is Trevor Lawrence. Thanks.
There we go.
Buy some new equipment.
There we go. I made it back.
Buy some new equipment.
I know. I really have to.
Okay. So I was talking about Jacksonville all by myself. Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, well, whatever. So basically what I was saying before was that the only thing that's making Jacksonville an interesting spot is Trevor Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing else keeping anybody. You're not going to Jacksonville to coach Laviska Shenault. You're not going to Jacksonville to coach Marvin Jones or coach James O'Shaughnessy. You're going to Jacksonville because you want to only work with Trevor Lawrence. That is the only selling point. And quite frankly, the Cons are very lucky that they have that as a selling point. Because if they didn't, I don't know who would take that job.
Well, it's the same selling point that the Arizona Cardinals had when they fired Steve Wilkes after 1 year. We have the first overall pick. Who wants to work with Kyler Murray? Mm-hmm. They got Cliff Kingsbury, and turns out Cliff Kingsbury was the right man for the job. Cardinals one of the best teams in the league right now. So it's all going to be, like you said, the selling point is who wants to work with Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence still has tons of value in him, I believe. And I think he got the raw end of
Oh my God, this kid's killing me. All right, I'll just have to keep going by myself because Klim's equipment is pure crap. What the hell are you doing?
I'm on my phone now, so whatever issues we have now.
It's never be your shitbox computer.
I need a new one. I really need a new computer.
I'll fucking buy one.
Hey,
shit.
I'm not made of money, cuz.
You're not made of money. You freaking buy you. How much did you spend at freaking Creative Pro?
I did spend a lot of money at Creative Pro.
Klim's Computer Fund. Go buy one.
I gotta buy one. No, you're right though. I do have to buy one.
Holy crap on a cracker! It's not that. What are you using? Your cell phone?
Right. Currently, yes. Right now, my cell
Oh,
phone.
Jesus Christ. That means you're going to get like text messages from your friends.
No, I'm not answering no one right now.
So a lot of people now in Jacksonville want Byron Leftwich to be the coach because he's played there. He wants the job. I think he's from there, actually, or close by. I think that's the wrong move, though. I think that's the wrong move for a guy like Trevor Lawrence. The last thing Trevor Lawrence needs right now is a new coach who has never been a head coach before, trying to find his way.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you're going up against the Tennessee Titans twice a year, the Indianapolis Colts twice a year, and yes, even the Houston Texans twice a year, because you can't beat them either. So I know this might not be the very sexy choice for a head coach, but Doug Peterson wouldn't be a bad guy for them. He's a veteran coach, Super Bowl winning coach. Everybody forgets that. And I think being away from the game for a year or maybe I don't even know if he had, I think he had a job as another job. I'm not even sure what it was. A steady veteran presence like that for your quarterback would be much more helpful. Yes, yeah. Kellen Moore is a sexy choice because his offense is really good. But it's about the overall aspect of the game. And I can't sit here and say that Kellen Moore is going to be an amazing head coach.
Right.
You know, you could hire Todd Bowles if you really wanted to because he's got veteran experience, but they were terrible. He's not a good coach with the Jets. And the thing is, you can't hire a defensive coach for Trevor Lawrence.
Right.
You have to hire an offensive coach. So the two veterans that come to my mind are Doug Peterson, Jim Caldwell. I'm not a huge Jim Caldwell guy, but Jim Caldwell's been kind of a steadying presence on a lot of teams he's coached. In fact, if I remember right, he was the last team that took the Lions to the playoffs. And he took the Colts to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm at right now. But the thing is, Jacksonville needs so much help that I don't even know if getting the number 1 overall pick is going to do anything for them. I don't know if it's going to be like, oh, yeah, Aiden Hutchinson. Great. Well, we need receivers. We need a running back because James Robinson tore his Achilles in the Jets game. He's going to be out for a year. You need defense. You need a secondary. You need a lot of help, man. Like they need a lot of freaking help.
They definitely do, but I definitely agree with you to the point of they definitely need a veteran head coach in there. You know, whether it's Doug Peterson, Jim Caldwell, whoever it is, someone who has experience and someone who can like help teach a quarterback, especially because Trevor Lawrence is the top 3 talent we've seen coming out of the drafts since Peyton Manning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's him, Andrew Luck, Peyton, and Trevor Lawrence, all top 3 talents that we've seen. You know, and he still has a lot of raw talent. He's still young. He's still making plays out there. He looks okay. Doesn't look bad in some games.
Yeah, but here's my thing on Trevor Lawrence, and I'm going to get into this right now. If you had to gauge Trevor Lawrence's first season, okay, here's the thing with me, and Jake made this so perfect on his show. No one is talking about how bad Trevor Lawrence has been this year.
Mm-hmm.
No one, not one person. Trevor Lawrence has 1 touchdown in his last 8 games. That is bad. I don't care who the coach is. I don't care if freaking Adam Gase is the coach. That is bad. That's bad. And for a guy who has been tabbed the once-in-a-generational prospect, that is bad. Trevor Lawrence now listen, I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be a very good quarterback. I'm not labeling him a bust yet by any stretch. But the fact is that for a guy with that kind of moniker, a guy with that kind of reputation in the league, he's not playing like it.
Mm-hmm.
And it shouldn't matter who his fucking talent is on the team. It shouldn't matter if Marvin Jones is his wide receiver or Laviska Shenault or Laquan Treadwell. It shouldn't matter. Because if he's as good as you guys are making him out to be, then he should be able to make all those guys good.
Mm-hmm.
See, the difference is when Zach Wilson fucks up, everybody's ready to run him out of town. Everybody's ready to ridicule the Jets for making a terrible draft pick. And I can't believe they drafted Zach Wilson. He sucks. Okay? but he's taking strides. Everybody's expectations went through the roof with Zach Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
They went through the roof with Justin Fields and went through the roof with Trevor Lawrence. But do you see the double standard in the NFL? Nobody's talking about Trevor Lawrence because they need Trevor Lawrence to succeed. Zach Wilson is not as big of a deal as Trevor Lawrence.
Right.
They need Trevor Lawrence to succeed. So they're going to sugarcoat it any which way they can. But facts are facts. And Trevor Lawrence stinks this year. The Jets game is a prime example. He should have lit up that secondary.
He really should have.
He should have lit that secondary up. That secondary had 2 practice squad players starting that they had just signed off the street 3 days ago. They had a cornerback who they converted to a safety who hadn't played a game yet as a safety. You lost Quinnen Williams an hour and a half before the game because of COVID. You didn't have Elijah Moore. You didn't have Michael Carter II. You didn't have anybody. You had and the guys you were starting, Ashton Davis and Sherrod Niesman, who aren't even that great, you didn't have them either. How is Trevor Lawrence not picking this secondary apart? The Jets got very little pass rush on him because they didn't have any pass rushers. John Franklin Myers was out. Quinnen Williams was out. They plucked the guy off the practice squad 19 minutes before game time. It's just, I don't get it, man. I don't get it. And Trevor Lawrence, like, again, I know he's a rookie. I get it. But I saw a lot of dink and dunk passes in that game. I saw him take an inexcusable sack that's resulted in a fumble that got recovered by the Jets, and I think in the red zone. He kneeled down on a 3rd and goal on the 2 with 12 seconds left, which was just odd, but that's just a rookie mistake. Like, if I had to give Trevor Lawrence a grade right now for his first season, I'd give him a C.
I would say that, yeah.
I think that he's shown a couple of things. You can blame a little bit of it on Urban Meyer if you want, but that shouldn't affect him. That shouldn't affect him the way that people think it should affect him. So, I mean, whoever coaches the Jaguar is going to have their work cut out for them. That's why I think a veteran guy would probably be the best course of action. I mean, I know that they're going to try to look for guys like Kellen Moore and Byron Leftwich, and I could see the Cons easily pivoting to Byron Leftwich because he's a Jacksonville guy. He's a former Jaguar. I just think it's the wrong move. I don't think it's a great move.
Oh, they would love him. They would love Byron Leftwich in Jacksonville.
So, all right, next up, Sam Darnold is going to start for the Panthers on Sunday. He's back in the starting job after Cam Newton pretty much crapped the bed big time after one decent game. And Sam really wasn't any better before he got hurt. He had fractured his clavicle, but he came back to Carolina Panther fans booing him on the field before he had even taken a snap. I'm not trying to make fun of Sam. I'm really not. I kind of feel bad for the guy. But, again, all those people who said that Gase was the problem and Gase was the reason why Darnold was a failure and everything, now you see what we were talking about on this show. Now you see that Darnold just makes poor decisions. He underthrows his receivers. He overthrows his receivers. He's just, he has happy feet back there. His feet are all over the place. If you ever watch his footwork, it looks terrible. And you can't sit there and say he doesn't have any weapons. He has DJ Moore. He has Robbie Anderson. He's got plenty of guys that he could throw the football to. What was alarming about the Carolina Panthers is you really see how bad that team is without Christian McCaffrey.
Oh, yeah.
It's just Christian McCaffrey makes that team go around. It's scary. Like, I hate to say it, but it's the truth. It's the absolute truth.
And again, that's like we said when the Jets played the Panthers week 1. That's what Sam Darnold was missing all those years. Christian McCaffrey, because that's all he did was just dump it off to McCaffrey when someone came in.
My brother was at that game, and he said if he didn't have McCaffrey, he would have played a lot worse.
Yeah.
He said he got lucky because McCaffrey was there. But again, so the question becomes, is this an audition for 2022? for Sam because Sam has no trade value.
No, he
There's
doesn't.
not going to be anybody lining up to get Sam Darnold for two reasons. Number one, he sucks. And number two, because they have a fifth-year option on him for over $20 million. Why would you want to trade for a quarterback that makes $20 million in a contract year? Right, Klim? You good? Klim? You been paying attention? Klim? Can you hear me?
No, I lost you there.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Dude, do we have to end the show because your crappy equipment doesn't work?
No, we should be fine.
You're sure?
Yes,
This is the third time now you've had an issue.
should be fine.
Okay. So, getting back to what I was saying. So the thing with Sam is that even if these two games, he plays well in these two games against the Saints and the Bucs, I don't really know what to make of how they're going to do this. And I'm curious to see how they handle this next year. Because the problem with the Panthers right now is you don't really have many draft picks next year.
Mhm.
And if you trade Sam, you're going to have to probably tack on a pick with that trade just to get some team to take him.
Right.
You already traded a second and a fourth to the Jets. So that gives you a third and a first. You're not going to trade to pick within the top 10 just so somebody could take Sam.
Right.
But you don't have a lot of draft capital either. So the question becomes, do you roll with Sam in 2022? Or do you try to find another alternative? Because I don't think it matters. I don't think if Sam plays well these last two games, to me, it means nothing. I mean, he's got the talent, he's got the weapons and everything. But I don't know. What do you think?
I think it was just a all-around bad moves for the Panthers to trade for Sam, and then let alone give him an extension too, because they thought they probably had something there with him. But you can clearly see that he is not the guy, and I like Sam. I always like Sam. I have nothing against Sam, but he's not the guy. And I think the Panthers dug themselves into a hole here by trying to draft Sam. And granted, you do have some decent pieces on this team with Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore. DJ Moore's a very good wide receiver when he's healthy.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, trying getting rid of Sam Darnold, I don't know, but I would say they have to use.
I mean, this has been like a clusterfuck of a season for the Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, between first they go get Sam, and we all thought that it was a good trade for both sides because we thought that Sam going to Carolina would have been good just to get him out of New York, give him a fresh start somewhere else. I didn't think Carolina was a very high-pressure city and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I thought everybody was getting a little too ridiculous with the Matt Rule, Joe Brady shit. But I was happy that Sam was going to a team where his career, in my opinion, I didn't think was going to be ruined.
Right.
So there was that. And the first couple of games of the year, they played really well. They went 3-0. But then, it all just fell apart. McCaffrey got hurt, and then Sam started struggling. Then McCaffrey came back, but Sam was still struggling. And then McCaffrey got hurt again, and he was out for the season. And then you brought in Cam Newton, nice feel-good story. But remember, Cam is old. It's like the minute they signed Cam Newton, articles were coming out like, oh, should the Jets be worried about the Panthers pick? No. I wouldn't be worried. Is Cam Newton going to lead them to the postseason and the Super Bowl? No. He's not that good. But it was just one thing after another. And then what's even more embarrassing about it is Matt Rule and Joe Brady were supposed to be this like dream team for Sam, right?
Right.
Joe Brady was interviewing for jobs, interviewed with the Jets for their job and everything. So think about how this past offseason, this guy was interviewing for head coaching jobs. Joe Brady. And he doesn't even make it through this season as the offensive coordinator. That is fucking embarrassing.
It's not a good look.
Okay, this was the guy that was supposed to fix Sam Darnold, right? This was supposed to be the miracle worker. Everybody talked about, this guy knows what he's doing. It was like the same shit with Gase. Everybody thought Gase was the miracle worker to fix Peyton Manning and all that stuff, right? And it turned out, like, again, You fired Joe Brady. This is the guy that everybody thought was going to be the next wonderkind head coach, whatever. And he gets fired. Because he can't, because Sam is terrible. And the team can't run the football. The team can't do anything. Your big $30 million extension to Robbie Anderson looks like crap right now because he hasn't even a 100-yard game yet this year. And then the idiot is on the sideline celebrating a first down when they're down 32-6. I mean, this has just been a roller coaster, not even a roller coaster, just more like a crashing plane for the Panthers. Now you got fans chanting they want Rule fired. Sam's getting booed when he comes into games. It's beyond terrible there in Carolina. You're going to tell me the Jets have problems? No. All right, number 8 is about Jake Paul. Jake Paul defeated Tyron Woodley over the weekend or over last weekend, whatever it was, knocked him out. Was it a TKO or was it a knockout?
It was a knockout.
Okay.
It was a clean knockout.
I'm trying to put this where I'm not going to be a total douche about his win. Look, I think it's great that Jake Paul is taking this seriously. That I will give him. I think he is really taking this boxing stuff seriously. He knows he's not going to be fucking Tyson, or he knows he's not going to be Evander Holyfield in their prime, but he looks committed. He doesn't look like a schmuck that's just going out there and for a big show. He does look like he's trying. The problem I'm having with this whole thing with him is that I think he's inadvertently ruining boxing.
Oh, he absolutely is.
He's not fighting anybody of significance. You can't fight a goddamn MMA fighter and say that's a credible opponent. Just because these fighters outside of Jake Paul put boxing into their daily workouts does not mean they are ready to be in a ring for 12 rounds. And I'm sick and tired of this. This is the shit that's ruining boxing. And you know who started that shit? Floyd Mayweather. With his bullshit fights and fighting Conor McGregor. It just becomes a payday at that point. It's not fun. Any true boxing fan would look at that fight and be like, give me a break.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what Tyron Woodley's skills are. This is where I would have Ike on to give me that lowdown. But my point is that you cannot keep fighting MMA guys and Nate Robinson. Yeah, that Nate Robinson from the Knicks. And call yourself a credible fighter. I think you trained well. I think you definitely trained for these fights. But if Jake Paul wants to be taken seriously, he needs to fight real fighters.
I 100% agree with you. And granted, I will say that, the second Tyron Woodley fight wasn't supposed to happen. It was supposed to be against Tommy Fury, who's supposed to be an up-and-comer fighter. Yeah, up-and-comer boxer, but he tore his shoulder, I think it was. So he tore something. He couldn't fight. That's why Tyron Woodley took it on. But no, you're absolutely right, though. He has to fight someone credible. Because fighting guys who I'm pretty sure Tyron Woodley, his main background is boxing. Wrestling. I think that's his main background. You keep fighting guys like that, you're not going to be. It's not credible. It's okay, cool. Yeah, it was a clean knockout, and it was. I think it was a legit knockout.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he fought Tyron Woodley. Cool, that's it. When you fight Canelo or Tommy Fury or a boxer, anyone, I don't care.
Fight a boxer that has experience. Fight a boxer with a record, with a good boxing record. Then I'll start to take Jake Paul seriously. But I can't take this seriously. It's just okay, he beat the shit out of an MMA guy who's probably over the hill, who's lost. I think he lost fights in MMA before he went into boxing. But then here's the worst part, Klim. Guess who comes out of nowhere now to challenge Jake Paul?
Conor McGregor.
No, Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell is challenging Jake Paul. Before he got signed by another team, he got picked up by, I think it was not the Ravens. The Buccaneers, but I think he's still with the Buccaneers.
Yeah, he's still with the Bucs, I think.
But my point is, do you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
Now, any athlete that's in really good shape, that incorporates a boxing workout into their daily routine, thinks they can beat this guy. And it's becoming more and more embarrassing because this guy's training to fight a fighter, not some bullshit exhibition. So Le'Veon Bell's going to get in the ring, he's probably get his ass kicked.
Mm-hmm.
But every time you put on a fight with this guy, you're ruining boxing more and more. Boxing is dying a slow death. In fact, it's pretty much dead outside of a few fighters. Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, Canelo, Triple G. But outside of that, I mean, they got nothing. And like this is like the new, flavor of the month in Jake Paul. The difference is that he's taking it seriously, but the promoters aren't.
No, yeah,
The
the promoters are looking at it as a nice payday. That's all they're looking at it as.
But here's the problem. If you put Jake Paul into a fight with a real fighter and that fighter beats him bad, that's it. His
Mystique.
His career is completely over. It's not even about losing mystique. He is no longer marketable.
Yeah.
He is no longer marketable. And that's the risk. They don't want to put him in the ring with a real fighter because they know he's going to lose. And they know he's going to lose bad. And that's why they don't want to do it. No promoter is going to want to put him in with a real fighter. Unless the payday is like off the charts. Only way it's going to happen. So the thing is, Jake Paul can be cocky all he wants, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, the only way you're ever going to be taken seriously is if you fight real fighters.
Mm-hmm.
All right, 9 and 10 are going to be about wrestling. Very surprising story last night out of the WWE, and that was what we thought was Toni Storm being released. Is now, reportedly, she quit.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, I think it's, how can I say this? I'm very proud of Toni Storm.
Mm-hmm.
Because Toni Storm realized that she wasn't going anywhere in WWE. She realized that there was no hope for her. And I think she knew that because she knows that she's too talented to be wasting away in WWE. And at that moment, she probably just said, you know what, I could just take my chances somewhere else.
Yeah.
I can go to AEW. I can go to Impact. Her husband, her fiance is Juice Robinson. I didn't even know that. So
Really?
Yeah, her fiance is Juice Robinson. Juice Robinson is an Impact in New Japan. She might go to New Japan. The thing is that, again, WWE is on the verge of losing a very talented wrestler. They already lost her. But this is what I mean about the state of WWE right now. They're putting way too much into like one or two feuds, and the rest of the guys are just left to fend for themselves. And it's not a good look.
And, and that's what I was talking to some of my friends last night about with the women's division, especially. If your name isn't Charlotte, Becky, Sasha, or Bianca right now, you're not going to hold a title ever in the WWE.
No.
That's the sad part, because you have talented women like Toni Storm, Rhea, Nikki Cross, but when she was Nikki Cross, Liv Morgan. Like, you have talented women who are very capable of holding a title, but they're not going.
And if they do hold the title, they will not be holding it for very long.
Yeah, look at the way when Nikki Ash held it. What, she hold it for a month? Not even?
Yeah. And the same will happen to Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan will beat Becky Lynch for the title either at the Rumble or at Day 1. And then she's going to lose it by Mania.
And that's the problem. I was even putting it up to the debate because I was watching AEW last night, and I'm watching it and I'm like, AEW's women's division might be better, if not more entertaining at least, than what WWE's got. And WWE's women's division for a long time has been like the gold standard.
Here's the one thing I will say about AEW as we kind of segue into that. AEW has almost way too many guys on the roster. Mm-hmm. Now with the addition of Kyle O'Reilly, now with the addition of Mercedes Martinez, who was on last night. And I'm not saying these guys are making, $250,000 a year, but they're also not making $5 an hour. Okay? My question ultimately becomes to AEW, when are they going to start making any revenue?
Mhm.
Are they even making money? And I think that that's why Vince McMahon is not really scared of them as much, because they don't do house shows. They tape 2 shows a week. They do Rampage and they do Dynamite. They basically do 1 day a week because Rampage is taped at Dynamite.
Mhm.
They have AEW Dark on YouTube. And then occasionally they do a pay-per-view once every few months. And that's great. But the question ultimately becomes is, when are you guys going to start going on tour? When do you start generating revenue to pay all this shit? Because eventually you're going to run out of it. And you're not going to go pay these guys all the time.
Well, they're touring now because the next, I'm pretty sure wherever they're going next, they're going to like their next pay-per-view event in Jersey, I think.
Yeah, but that's just Dynamite.
Yeah.
I'm talking about house shows.
Oh, yeah.
Talking about like weekend house shows. They're not doing any of that stuff right now. I mean, I'm sure they're getting good money on a TV deal. I'm not saying they're not. And I'm sure they're making money off the merch and all that. And, AEW Dynamite's selling out everywhere pretty much. But all these guys are making big money.
Mhm.
Daniel Bryan is making big money. Jon Moxley's the highest paid wrestler on the Federation right now. CM Punk, I'm sure, is making good money. Cody Rhodes is making good money. Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks. I'm sure Adam Cole didn't sign for cheap. Same thing with Kyle O'Reilly. You have to entice them to go to AEW, and the only way you enticing them is with money.
Right.
But the question ultimately becomes is, when does it run out? When does AEW start putting, for example, if AEW starts telling these guys, okay, guys, we're going on tour, so be prepared to be on the road for 3 or 4 days a week. How's that going to look? How's that going to fit for a guy like CM Punk? How's it going to fit for a guy like Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson? Or Cody Rhodes, whose wife, who I think if she's didn't give birth, she's about to give birth. Or they had a kid. I'm not even sure.
No, they just had it.
They just had her, okay. How's it going to look for Chris Jericho? Because those are the guys that you're going to want to go see when you go on an AEW house show. You're not going to sit there waiting around for fucking Wardlow or for Sonny Kiss I'm not disrespecting those guys. I'm just saying that they're mid to low card wrestlers. You're going to want to see Adam Cole. You're going to want to see Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish. But the question becomes is, when you have to change the schedules, how much are these guys really going to love AEW then?
Right.
And that's one thing the Cons have to be worried about, because the Cons ain't making shit off the Jacksonville Jaguars. Okay? And right now, it looks to me like they're not really generating much revenue, if any, on AEW. Because again, how are you marketing this? Like, you're on Wednesday nights. You have a Friday night show, Rampage. But what else you got after that? It's not like you're going to house shows like on Mondays or Fridays and Saturdays and stuff like that.
Right.
They love the schedule because it's 1 day a week. It's 1 day a week for 2 hours. You do a live show and you go home. Yeah, any wrestler would love that. But that's what I'm saying. Like, where is AEW? When are they going to generate this revenue? When are they going to start? Because I think that's part of the reason why Vince is not really scared of them. I think it's because of the fact that he knows that when they have to go on the road, then he'll see guys like CM Punk bitching and complaining about being on the road all the time. Or, guys like Bryan Danielson, who's, he's married to Brie Bella. He's got 2 kids at home. He's not going to want to go on the road for like 200 days of the year.
True.
Maybe guys like Hangman Page will. I'm sure guys like MJF will. I'm sure guys like, VSK will, and, whoever. But, the veteran guys are not going to. You think Jericho wants to do that for that many such and such? Especially when he's gotten so comfortable with being there and only going once a week and then being able to go on tour whenever he wants with Ozzy.
Mm-hmm.
Do his cruise, like his wrestling cruise. No,
Right.
he doesn't want to do that. AEW does have a very good product, though. They do. They have a very awesome big fight feel to their matches, which I love. But something tells me that eventually they're going to hit their peak. And I'm not saying the bottom will drop out, but They're gonna have to do something to shake it up. You can't just keep doing a pay-per-view every 3 months and then once a week you tape Dynamite. You got to try to figure out a way to get more, get the names out there, get to other cities.
I think they'll figure it out at some point because they're still very young in this. They've only been doing this for 2 years now, and they've been continuing to keep growing and growing and growing each way. So I think at some point they will figure it out though.
So, all right, before we get into how the former Jets did last week, we only have 3 because the other guys are out for the season. And I won't do Chris Herndon anymore because he just doesn't. He hasn't caught a ball in like 5 weeks. Yesterday was a bit of a shock to the system of the sports world with the passing of John Madden. You don't remember John Madden too much when he used to do the broadcasts on Fox. He used to cover all the NFC games and stuff. But Madden was he was amazing. I mean, that's all you could really say. And he was I loved watching him all the time. I grew up watching him. I grew up watching him call games with Pat Summerall every Sunday. Most of the time it was Cowboy games. But I loved looking forward to Thanksgiving when he used to do the Thanksgiving game with the Madden turkey legs, when he'd have 6 turkey legs, 3 on each side. And he was just an icon in sports and everything, and he will be missed. I can't say I was very good at John Madden football. When I had it for Sega Genesis, I was pretty decent. After a while, it just got too complicated for me, and it just wasn't worth it. Oh, so I see now we have you in one area. We have a weird silhouette of you in another area.
Yeah, that guy left. But yeah, to go off to John Madden, that one hit home a little bit. That one definitely hit home.
You don't remember like the 90s, like when he used to do. You don't remember the 90s when he used to do the games with Pat Summerall, like on Fox. He always did the NFC games.
Yeah.
Most of the time, he used to do the Cowboy games. Not that he was a big Cowboy fan, but those are the games he covered the most. But he was definitely one of a kind. He used to always, when he used to write on the TV screen, when he used to show he was the originator, kind of like of that, and Thanksgiving, when he used to do the games on Thanksgiving Day for the Lions, he used to have the Madden turkey legs, right, where the turkey would have like 6 legs on it, like whoever was like the MVPs of the game would each get a turkey leg and stuff. And one thing my dad always told me was John Madden never flew anywhere.
Yeah.
He had a bus completely decked out for himself, and he would drive to every city. Didn't matter where he was. He would drive to every city for whatever game he was calling. He was afraid to fly. He never liked to fly. And, that was it. And if you ever want to go online, if you want to see how old his games really are, like on Sega Genesis and all that stuff from like the 90s, there's a great montage of when players get hurt in Madden. The ambulance comes out and takes them, and the ambulance always runs over the players to get to the injured player. So you see the ambulance just like running over like all the freaking players and everything. It's hysterical, right? And he will be missed. He was definitely one of a kind. He's definitely an original, an icon all the way. And you don't really hear about him. Since he retired, you haven't really heard about him too much. But he was just an amazing analyst and great head coach. And he will be missed. That's
legend of the game. I mean, he was my childhood. That's all I played was Madden when I was younger. Like
I used to play Madden a lot for like Sega Genesis and stuff. But when it got to it got too technical for me, and I got kind of sick of it. It was a little too detail oriented, and it just wasn't. After a while, I got kind of sick of it.
My first Madden game was Madden 03, and that's when I fell in love with the game. It was love at first sight with me playing Madden, and again,
it's just it's the most popular football game in the world.
Lose, and then when you read up on stuff about him and like how good of a coach he was and a mentor and all this stuff, it really, like you said, hits home with him, losing him yesterday like that.
Yeah, I mean, you watched him on TV. You watched him. I mean, you didn't watch him calling football games. Watch him. Go on YouTube and watch some of his old.
Oh, games. I've seen. Yeah, I've definitely.
He's funny as hell.
You know, it's funny. You know, I mentioned that I saw a clip yesterday on Instagram, and it was his scene in The Little Giants.
Yeah. He goes, I call it the annexation of Puerto Rico. Hey, it's not bad. But here, I do this a little differently. Yeah, he's one of a kind. He will definitely be missed. So, all right, before we get out of here, let's do what we always do. We like to recap how former Jets fared last week. We didn't do this the week before because we didn't have a show. I only did last week because you didn't really miss much. Darnold didn't play the week before. Jamal Adams is out for the season. Herndon didn't have a catch. Leonard Williams and Robbie Anderson, they pretty much struggled. So, all right, so we'll get to it right now. Sam Darnold last week, 15 of 32 for 190 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Carolina lost 32-6. So, for the season, remember, Darnold also came in for Cam Newton, who was also wasn't very good. So, for the season for Sam Darnold, 2,176 yards, 7 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 5 rushing touchdowns, completion percentage of 58.3%. So not very good. Robbie Anderson last week, 5 catches, 58 yards, no touchdowns. Again, they lost 32-6. Robbie Anderson was pretty vilified last week, or just ripped to shreds on social media for celebrating a touchdown on the Buccaneers sideline. Not celebrating a touchdown, excuse me. Celebrating a first down on the Buccaneers sideline, down by 26. So for the season for Robbie Anderson, 44 catches, 459 yards, 4 touchdowns. So that is really bad. So again, last year everybody went crazy about Robbie Anderson, and I kind of saw right through it, because when you go into detail in the game-to-game stats, he had a lull of like 6 or 7 weeks where he did absolutely nothing. He was basically being on a high of the first few weeks of the season when he had over 100 yards in like back-to-back games. But overall, he was not as good as you made him out to be. At the end of the day, his stats were good, but he was not that good.
Mm-hmm.
Like just when you go dive a little deeper into it, it's like this year with DJ Moore. DJ Moore started out really great, and he's only had one really good game over the last 6 somewhat weeks. And that's with Cam, and that's with Sam as his quarterback. He has 1,000 yards, but he's, again, you're basing it off the first half of the season, not really the second half.
Right.
All right, last but not least, Leonard Williams, 4 tackles, 2 solo tackles, no sacks. 34-10, they lose to Philadelphia. For the season, 69 tackles, 5.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. So not a bad season, but it's not a $20 million a year season.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And I every day that the Seahawks continue to suck, I just I want to kiss the ground Joe Douglas walks on, because such a smart trade. So smart.
The funny thing is I have a theory on how, I don't know, man. Part of me thinks that Douglas is going to trade the second pick. He's going to trade down.
I also believe that too. I also have a theory that he's going to trade both picks and move up.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't trade both my first rounders to move up to 1 or 2. Oh man,
if we can get Thibodeau or Hutchinson, yes.
Yeah, no, I would love to get those guys. Don't get me wrong. I would love to get Aiden Hutchinson. I would love to, or Kayvon Thibodeau. But I think there's a ton of talent that Douglas can get to. I think you can solidify the line with a guy like Evan Neal from Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
This kid from Purdue who's a pass rusher could be impressive. There's some pretty good linebackers in the draft this year. Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame, I think, would be great for the secondary. I would love to have him. I think it needs to be a defensive player, although I'd be okay with another weapon on offense. I would not be opposed to that. But I would love Joe Douglas to trade down and trade the second pick down. And I think it will, what I think is going to determine it, quite frankly? It's going to be the quarterbacks. I think if any of these quarterbacks have a very strong showing at pro days and everything, then I think there's going to be a team in the middle of the first round that might be on the fence about a quarterback that's going to want to take one. And I think that could be the spot where they trade up to get him.
Right.
Now depending on where Seattle finishes the rest of the year. Seattle could finish, the Jets could wind up picking 4th and 9th or 4th and 7th or 6th. This week, I think I forgot who the Seahawks played. I think they played the Lions.
I think so.
The Lions are a team that are playing hard for Campbell. But part of me just thinks that they're going to trade. I have this really gut feeling that they're going to trade down in the draft. I think they're going to trade that second first rounder. Or they're going to trade that second rounder and try to accumulate another pick that they may have lost in the past. So, all right, Klim, before we get out of here, anything?
Yeah, you got any predictions for day one?
No, I don't think there's not going to be any titles changing hands. It doesn't. That pay-per-view is a little bit of flux because of COVID, because they pulled Rollins from it. They pulled Rollins from the MSG house show last week because of COVID. But I don't know if he's going to be able to wrestle on Saturday.
I don't know, man. This is what I was what I was thinking prior to Rollins getting COVID is I thought they were going to give him the title. I thought they were going to give him the title here, have him run with it till Mania, have Kevin Owens win the Rumble since they just signed him back, and then have Kevin Owens win it at Mania.
Well, I think they have big plans for Kevin Owens, knowing full well that he's just re-signed with them. Just like I know that it's probably that Sami Zayn is going to become the new Intercontinental Champion. So because I don't think that they're signing those guys if they're not giving them at least a title run. So
right.
I don't really see anything out of the ordinary. I think it's going to be another screw job with Lesnar and Reigns. And again, I don't know why you're putting that on day one. I don't know why. And then, of course, you're going to have Lesnar and Reigns fight at Mania. And then hopefully then Lesnar takes the title. But right now the rumor is Reigns is going to fight McIntyre at the Royal Rumble. I don't really understand that at all. But, McIntyre hasn't done jack shit to warrant the title shot.
He hasn't.
So, but that's where they are. That's the state of the WWE. There's no rhyme or reason to any of the things they're doing. Nakamura hasn't defended the IC title once since October. So you know that they're just going to get Sami Zayn to win it. So, but everything is just a mess right now. They're going to probably break, And the other thing to WWE is very simple. If you're going to break up RK Bro, can you just fucking do it already? I'm so sick of waiting for this. Like I wait and I wait. It takes like forever before you finally do it. Plant the seeds at the fucking Rumble. Have Orton throw Riddle out and be done with it.
Yeah.
And then that's how you start it. There you go. At Mania, Randy Orton versus Matt Riddle. Done. So nothing else for me on this part. I mean, we pretty much covered everything we needed to cover. Hoping that the Jets just give a strong effort on Sunday against Tom Brady, even though I know that game's going to be pretty much be dead on arrival. But hopefully they give him a strong effort.
Hopefully.
I'm kind of liking what I'm seeing from the Jets now. I feel like they are playing competitive. They're just
looking good.
They just need talent. They just need talent. That's it. And before I go, remember to Jet fans, it is okay to celebrate a win. Enjoy it. That's what I want to see at the end of the year. I want to see W's. I don't want to see losses. I don't give a shit about their draft position. I trust Joe Douglas to make the right decisions.
Yeah.
But I want to see wins. I don't want to see losses. I'm tired of seeing losses every Sunday.
Yeah, and I would love wins. I have no problems with wins. And I told you this from week one. I don't care wins, losses, ties, whatever it is. As long as the guys who are developing and who we want to look good are getting better and better each week, that's all that matters to me. And that's exactly what's happening. So, by all means, keep it going.
All right, well, everyone, that's going to do it for this episode of the Moffett on the Mic show, our final episode of 2021. Klim, if you look back on 2021, what do you think?
As a sports year or as a...
Just a Klim year.
Klim year, I had a good year. I think I had a good year.
It felt good. It feels good to be back at work again.
Yeah, I feel from your standpoint, I can imagine.
And to be honest, like it feels good to be in a place that you're wanted. It feels good to be in a place that's close to home. So it doesn't really, I don't have to deal with the city bullshit anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy my job. I really enjoy the people I work with. They're all really good people. And, I said this to a couple people at work one time. I said, this is the first time in a long time that I can honestly say that I was happy when I went to work every day. I couldn't say that very often,
Right.
but that's probably the saving grace, because I was nervous for a while, and I was nervous that I wasn't going to be able to get a job right away.
Hmm.
I was glad I landed that one right before the start of the fall season.
Right.
Hopefully, COVID doesn't decimate travel, but I don't think it's going to. I don't think it's going to be as bad as the year before, but I think you're going to still have some people who are, fearful, and rightfully so. But all you can do is listen. If you have to get vaccinated, if you don't, that's fine. But just got to remember the consequences if you don't get vaccinated. That's it. Symptoms are going to be a lot worse. So, but on that note, everybody, wherever you are, have a very happy New Year. Whatever you're doing, stay safe, because one thing I always say about New Year's Eve is it's amateur hour out there, and all the hammerheads will be out drunk as shit and trying and making life miserable on the road for you. So wherever you are, stay safe. Have a very happy New Year, whatever you're doing. Take transportation home if you don't want to drive. Don't force yourself to drive if you've been drinking. And we look forward to having more shows in 2022. Klim, my promise, my resolution for 2022 is that we are going to build new relationships with new guests while keeping strong relationships with our current ones.
Yes.
So, for everybody who has been a guest on this show, we've mentioned your names a bunch of times, and we're going to do it again. Jake Asman, Ike Feldman, Taylor Dahl, Christine Wen, the Pisanos. The list goes on and on. Jamie D'Amico has become one of our best friends in the world with the Bill Leave podcast. John Sheeran, one of our really good friends with the Cincy Jungle blog.
Jack Tomlinson.
Jack Tomlinson, VSK. We always appreciate you guys taking the time to come on our show, because it just shows that people care. And that's what we're trying to build, Klim and I, with this show. And getting you guys on the show, getting it out there just makes our day. It makes it. We always look forward to having our guests on. Another one I totally forgot, Chrissy Freud.
Yes.
We always look forward to having these guys on our show. And we can't wait for 2022, because we're really going to start building new relationships, hopefully with some new blog writers for some different teams. We're going to really kind of go outside the box on a lot of the stuff that we're doing. We're really excited about it. And we hope you guys come along for the journey. So, and that's what 2022 is about. So on that note, wherever you are, Happy New Year. It's been a great 2021, but we're looking forward to 2022. Klim, stay safe, whatever it is you're doing tomorrow, which I'm assuming is nothing. And have a great New Year, everyone. Again, stay safe. And we'll be back next week. Are we doing Monday?
Yes.
All right. So Monday is our first show for 2022. We couldn't be more excited. Again, Happy New Year, everybody. Take care of yourselves. And that's a wrap on 2021. Take care, everybody.